Item 10G, presentation discussion of the proposed community engagement process for the draft Unified Development Code. And Mr. Bryan stood up and then sat down.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time this evening. We are ready to take this information to the next step and kind of update you on where we are with regard to the Unified Development Code and getting this hopefully further towards the finish line. My name's Dawn Thomas. I'm the project manager. I work with Freese and Nichols, and Jake Lange is not with me this evening, but I've got to give him credit for doing a lot of the heavy lifting on moving this draft document forward and also just keeping me in line. So briefly today, I want to just give you an introduction and overview of the project itself. It's not as detailed as we went into back in, I believe, October when I provided the update most recently. Just sort of hit on the big changes, the major moves relative to the code update, and then really focus more specifically on our next steps and present a timeline for public engagement. So, the purpose of the project, there were a lot of purposes to the project, but this really kind of zeroes in on the key desirable outcomes to streamline and clarify development review processes. While doing that, ensuring that your development outcomes still represent the high quality that the community expects, and all of that in service to implementing and realizing the city's long-term goals and objectives relative to development and growth through the Edmond plan. So the project schedule, this is a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we began back in late 22 with phase 1, worked through the development of a diagnostic report, which was to review all of your existing codes and development policies, and then to start to actually draft code. We've spent obviously most of our time in the drafting phase of the project, and the phase 3 kind of overlaps with phase 2, where we were also developing an updated zoning map to reflect the new zoning structure that's proposed. So we're looking at phase 4 now, moving into adoption this spring. So just an overview of what we feel like are the biggest shifts from your current regulations to what we're proposing. The first is really just a restructuring of your development regulations, which are currently now in separate documents representing your subdivision regulations and your zoning code. The proposal, of course, is to integrate all of your regulations that point to private developments and move those into what we call a unified development code, so that there are common sections that address general provisions and definitions, but then also chapters that speak to your zoning, subdivision, site design and development standards, stormwater drainage, components of your code. So the pieces are all still there, they're just reorganized. Some of the key elements that we wanted to address that were called out in the diagnostic report included improving the legibility and usability of the document, making sure that your code is as free of jargon as possible, using common language, making the document more user-friendly for people who administer it as well as people who use it by way of hyperlinks, and making sure that you have a digital format that can be utilized to navigate more easily, and also just populating the document with more graphics to explain concepts and to describe processes. So graphics, diagrams, illustrations, flowcharts, bulleted lists, those types of things. Currently, the zoning approach was also kind of a big move. You currently have 32 zoning districts. Several of them are underutilized to the point that maybe 1 or 2 parcels have the designation. And there are also zoning districts that have very minimal differences between districts in your current menu of zoning districts. What we are proposing is a new structure that is sort of based in context areas. So there are 4 context areas They're urban, suburban, rural, and overlay. So corridors are addressed by overlays, some of your key corridors, not all of them. And PUDs in the new structure are still provided for. Those that are existing are maintained. There are equivalencies established between those 32 existing districts and the proposed 10 new districts. And also there is a relationship between each of those districts and the future land use category within your comprehensive plan. Regarding procedures, we wanted to ensure that there was clarity, both for the decision makers as well as the applicants and the reviewers within your staff team that look at development applications on a regular basis. Part of the goal, of course, was to ensure that we could provide a consistent, predictable, and fair process so that everyone was following the same rules, and to leverage your staff expertise in using their skills to ensure that you're getting high quality outcomes and still have the oversight necessary to make sure that they are doing their job, but also have the support of backstops if necessary, or if there are appeal processes that need to be pursued. So in that regard, site plans are one of the things that we're proposing to change, I guess, relatively significantly. So the way that this chart works, the top boxes, the teal color, they indicate a site plan that's initiated with a special use permit, or one that could be initiated with what we call alternative compliance. That means following the rules but doing it in a different way. And then the third is without either alternative compliance or a special use permit. Those that follow the bottom track, which don't have any special approvals necessary, they go through a staff level review. In that review, it's determined what type of site plan they are. I'll show you on the next slide that there are different tiers or levels of site plans. And then determining once that's determined, then there are additional submittals based upon that determination. And those additional submittals determine what content is provided for staff to conduct a complete review. If staff approves, then that project is ready to move on to building permits. If staff does not approve, then it can be resubmitted with changes, or it can be appealed to the Planning Commission. Similarly, an application that's submitted with a component that is proposing alternative compliance, it's reviewed it's reviewed at a staff level to determine appropriateness and conformance. And if the if the staff does not feel comfortable with that alternative compliance proposal, then it can be pursued to the Planning Commission. If the staff does approve, then it sort of jumps down to the next level or the next row and continues through the process. If a special use permit's requested, then a staff review is conducted for completeness, and that still follows the Planning Commission City Council track that those site plans currently do. Site plan types, there are 4 levels, and they're really based upon the amount of site, geography that's disturbed or part of the development, and the building criteria. So whether or not there's an alteration or it's a new build versus something that, something that's a new build versus something that's an alteration of an existing. So each of those different types or tiers of site plans comes with different types of application materials that need to be submitted. And this is, we've also worked through with staff kind of the checklists of what content needs to be provided on each of these different types of plans. So it's feels a little bit complicated, but it actually follows a similar process today where you have a checklist of materials that need to be submitted or shown on, for instance, a landscape plan, and that comes in for staff level review. Development standards, of course, have been updated as well. We're looking at ensuring that there are architectural and design standards that are appropriate for the different types of development, intended to protect neighbors from adverse impacts of new development. That's something that was stressed through the development or through the diagnostic report, and then incorporating standards for infill to also ensure that character within neighborhoods is maintained, but still allowing for and supporting infill development. So big picture, you have these main chapters or sections of the Unified Development Code addressing zoning, subdivision, urban landscape or urban forestry and landscape, and site plan procedures. So how does this all come together? It's a balancing act between things like ensuring high standards and also providing for developer friendliness or development friendliness, allowing for some flexibility and innovation through things like alternative compliance, but ensuring that that's done in a way that is fair across the board and consistent in application. Providing streamlined processes that also ensure that there is a thorough review of every project as it comes through the development review process. We want to see outcomes that sustain beautiful, stable neighborhoods or create new ones, but also allow for growing business opportunities. The idea is to preserve everything that's great about Edmond, but also allow for capitalizing on opportunities and new investments. So all of this in service, again, to your comprehensive plan, and the vision statement for your comprehensive plan is what's provided there at the bottom of the page. So again, to the project schedule, moving into phase 4, we have a solid draft of the Unified Development Code that's been through a pretty extensive staff review. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's definitely a document that is ready for additional eyes to look at it and to provide additional feedback on it. Same thing with a zoning map that represents the new zoning framework. So now we're proposing to move into a series of public open houses and then get this thing ready to come through the Planning Commission and City Council for adoption as soon as everyone feels like it's ready. So the timeline that we're looking at, we're proposing to conduct 3 open house meetings. Each of those will be a 3-hour-long meeting, so from 3 to 6 on February 26th, from noon to 3 on March 3rd, and from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on March 11th. We're proposing that those be drop-in open house structured, self-guided meetings, all conducted here in City Hall in your Main Street conference room. The key objectives as seen here to make sure that people are informed about the project and about the proposed changes, provide opportunities for people to review zoning map changes and also review the UDC document, gather some feedback, and hopefully build some consensus around these tools that we're proposing to bring forward. There's a series of exhibits that will be presented for these open house meetings. Some of them are introductory or overview, just kind of what this project is. Most of them will also allow for people to provide some feedback. And we'll also have, of course, copies of the draft document as well as a computer kiosk that people can see where we can pull up their current location and identify any changes from existing zoning to proposed. I will say, when we're talking about adopting a new zoning map, we are not proposing to drastically change anyone's rights or privileges relative to their current zoning. Most of the zoning districts, in fact, I would probably say all of the new zoning districts, provide more flexibility than what the current does, but the code also provides some additional guardrails when it comes to development standards within those new zoning districts. So it takes a little bit of discussion to understand the differences between now and what's proposed. But that's something that we can definitely take care of at those public open house meetings. We also propose to conduct what we're calling office hours in the small conference room beside the Main Street conference room, immediately following each of those open house meeting times, where we'll be available. We'll have a couple of computers. We can sit down and have one-on-one conversations with people who want to dig in a little bit or ask more detailed questions, or if they just can't make it to the open house meetings, and these times might be more flexible for them or more accommodating. So again, these are similar opportunities, but it's on a one-on-one type basis, and working with staff, I think we'll have plenty of people to man both the open house meetings as well as the office hours that follow them. But that is the proposal when it comes to public engagement and moving into the next phase of the project. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Questions? Comments? I know this was at a pretty high level, so I also know that you're meeting with me in, I don't know, a couple of weeks, whenever. We've only moved it like 4 times
I think
because
we're
of
going to talk about the
schedules,
Lake
but-
District and some other things.
Yeah,
sir.
we'll get into that. I'm not even going to go there tonight, so. Any thoughts?
I appreciate the public input phase happening here. Most people won't know what it means, but if they take a minute and come talk to you or read through some of that, then I think it's helpful to have that transparency. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I appreciate the varied times that you're offering and the office hours, and I'll plan to pop in and learn more myself. So thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for your work so far, and I think I'm going to be in that particular meeting and talk about that, so we'll chat then.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We do have flyers and basically outreach information prepared that as long as you all are comfortable with this schedule and moving forward, we're prepared to send that out to the communications team and start advertising this information tomorrow. So,
I think the sooner we get it in front of people, the better off we are. Thank you.
all right. Thank you all very much.